Right. And all right. Welcome, Rebekah Higgs. Welcome to the Momentum Podcast. I'm so excited to have you on today.
It's great to be here with you, Tanya. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for coming. And in the introduction, uh, I introduced you and read your bio and everything. So the listeners should know a little bit about you. So we're just going to jump right in and talk about how you got to be where you are today. And you started out, you went from chasing a music career in Toronto,
Hmm.
waitressing, and then struggling financially to now thriving with 94,000 followers on Instagram and then 5 seasons of DIY Mom
Yeah,
and features in HGTV and Forbes. So, can you take us back to that transition? Like, what was that turning point when you decided to pivot to what you're doing now? And how did you make that happen?
sure. Well, I can credit most of it to my daughter because I think without the birth of her, I wouldn't have had that motivation to do something else and change paths and change course in my life. But up to that point, I was living quite a self-centered life. I was, um, a musician, touring, partying a lot, socializing, and late nights and sleeping in all day. So it was a very different lifestyle than when you find yourself pregnant and all of a sudden you're not the fun one anymore.
Yeah.
And then you have a baby and everything changes and you have to change your schedule and your whole life revolves around this little baby that needs you so much. So my priorities really shifted at that point. And through a course of events, many painful events in those 2 years of being pregnant and then having my daughter, I finally, the light came at the end of the tunnel when I was able to move back home to Halifax. So I was able to get back to be with my family. And at that point, I really had to start fresh and do something else with my life. Um, and the road to DIY mom took a couple of years, but in the meantime, during that course of time, I started working in film and television. I was an associate producer at a commercial film production house. And then I started doing hair, makeup, wardrobe, art department on film shoots. So I was getting a lot of this experience behind the camera and behind the scenes of what it takes to make a show and make good commercials. And that just got my curiosity sparked. And I started asking questions about this and that and talking to the agents and talking to the clients. And one of the things I was curious about was, okay, what's the next big trend in marketing going to be? And at that point, they were talking about branded content. And this is all before we had influencer marketing. And so, with that thought of branded content, that got me thinking about what would my brand be if I was going to start my own personal brand, and what would that look like if I was going to teach myself how to shoot my own content and edit my own content, and if I was going to be on camera, and what would my brand be? And that's when I came up with the idea of DIY mom. I just loved the sort of the symmetry between DIY and MOM. I was a single mom doing it myself. I was doing little renovations, little DIY projects. And because of my background in music, we were very much like DIY was a phrase that we used in terminology in like the music circles because we were silk screening our own posters and making our own merch, and so everything was very DIY back in the early 2000s. And so I just kind of grabbed that and ran with it, made my own logo, built a website, and then started pitching the concept to brands to see if they wanted to partner with me. And then that eventually led to the TV show, which I did for 5 seasons. So while I was doing the TV show, I was also building up my social media and posting content on my social media at the same time, and just kind of using both to leverage whatever I could to build this brand. And I guess that's a condensed version of how I started DIY Mom.
It's just so like I'm just so fascinated by it. It's just so funny how like just one little thing led to the next. Um and then like what I have learned from the life coach school and what I teach is our thoughts create our feelings, and then our feelings drive all of our actions, which then gives us our results in our life. So, continuing on like this one question, like if you were to go back to that transition when you decided to build this brand, like what do you think was the feeling that was driving that decision?
Well, I've always wanted to be an artist and I've always been very passionate about my art. So even if when I was a musician or when I was in theater school or whatever, I was very driven to be an artist. And I think I understood at an early age that the chances of somebody coming and finding you and plucking you out of a crowd and saying, "You're a star, I'm going to make you a star," were very slim to none. So I felt this obligation that if I wanted to be an artist, I needed to do it and be an artist. If I wanted, if I cared about something, if I had a dream, nobody else cares about it the way that I care about it. Nobody cares about my art the way I care about my art.
Mm.
So therefore, if I want to be an artist, I have to go and make it happen. And make it happen was a family mantra of ours growing up. My dad used to drop us off at school and say, make it happen. And that was the idea. It's like almost that entrepreneurial brain that I was brought up with. I was very focused on even as an artist. So I was like, okay, I'm going to have an entrepreneurial mind when it comes to making my art. Nobody cares about my art like I do. I'm going to get it in front of people. I'm going to push this thing. I'm going to write the grants so that I can make the music. And it was the same thing when it came to DIY Mom. Even when I pitched it to other production companies and thinking that maybe they'd like to take this to HGTV or to Chorus or to whatever, they would always say, we don't think it's an original idea. It's not an original idea. It's not a big enough concept. You know, people are looking for like really high stakes. This is not high stakes. And I really felt like I could see the pendulum switching. Like I could see that the YouTube tutorials, like where people just go to YouTube to watch something, to
Mhm.
learn something, was where things were headed. And so if HGTV or that style of before and after with all the drama in the middle didn't change to kind of amalgamate with that YouTube style, that they would become just dinosaurs and extinct. So I had this new concept, which would be an amalgamation of YouTube tutorials and the beautiful before and afters that you see on HGTV. And that was what I was pitching as DIY Mom. And they just didn't see it as a viable concept. Like they just wanted to remake the same type of shows that were already successful. And that idea of making something fresh was not a risk that other production companies were willing to take. So in order to take that risk, I had to really take the risk myself and put myself on the line to do it.
I love that. I think it's so smart. And my follow-up question was going to be because thoughts create feelings, but I didn't even have to ask you, like it just came out. Like your thought was just make it happen.
Mhm.
And you did, you made it happen. I love that. And you're self-made as a single mom, which is so inspiring.
Yeah,
Um,
everything has been DIY, like even from the idea of like being my own producer and
it's
putting
awesome.
together a film crew and then doing the renovations and then the post-production, like in all aspects, I've just felt like I've had to do it myself. And not to mention that I've had to do the parenting thing alone too. So I just really felt like the DIY mom uh encapsulated all of me and all the things that I was doing.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And you've built this incredible business while raising your daughter. So how
Mhm.
do you balance it all?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think that there's been lots of times where I did feel overwhelmed and I would be overcome with anxiety, but as I grew and as I had more streams of income and more brand partnerships, I started to delegate in little ways. So early on, when Lennon was a toddler, I remember having a babysitter that came over, and she was just like a 16-year-old girl in the neighborhood, but she just had a great work ethic. And when I would come home, she'd be watching YouTube videos about organizing a home and folding my laundry and stuff. And I was like, Melissa, do you like organizing and folding laundry and doing stuff like that? And she was like, yes. And I said, well, why don't you come when Lennon's at school and do some stuff around my house, because I needed the help.
Perfect.
I felt like things were falling apart. And I think when you're a creative type or maybe you have a little touch of ADHD or whatever, a disorganized house can be a really easy distraction as to why I might not be able to get things done or achieve
Yep.
things during a day. So just even like offloading that allowed me to be more creative and have more bandwidth to like design the logo, make the website, reach out to brands and focus on the things that only I could do and that I was really good at. And so over time I just started to delegate more and more things like that off to other people, things, tasks and jobs that somebody else could do just as well as me. I remember mowing the lawn with my baby on my back in the little baby carrier and mowing the lawn, and it was a hilly lawn. It was a lot of work and just being so exhausted afterwards, and my body was starting to break down. And And then I would have to spend all this money to go to chiropractors and osteopaths to get like myself back to
Oh,
normal. And I kind of a light bulb went off in my head. I was like, I'm spending $100 every time
right.
I mow the lawn on like physiotherapy versus
Yeah.
paying a kid $30 to mow my lawn
Right.
for me. So just like
Yeah.
making those changes in my brain to realize not every like thing that you do
You
yourself is valuable
Yeah, you
way
don't
like
have to do it
spend your
all
time.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like that fine line, like, I can do it all myself versus, no, actually, I don't have to do it all
Yeah.
myself, and, like, recognizing when it's actually serving you versus when it's not.
Yeah, for sure. Like I can mow my own lawn. I can do my own gardening. I can
Of
do my own
course.
laundry. I can go do my own grocery shopping. I can clean my house, but it doesn't mean
Does
that I will have
You
any
should.
time left over to do anything else. So
Right.
maybe it's just not a smart use of my time. And I think
Yeah,
that if you've got like that creative artistic brain and you've got an idea and something passionate that you want to follow, it might be time to offload some of those menial tasks that somebody else can do. Hmm.
I love that for myself and for the listeners. Needed to hear that.
Yeah.
So, what has been the most challenging part of being a single mom and entrepreneur, and how have you navigated the tough moments?
I think like the toughest part about it was I could easily be addicted to work. I really loved working and then I kind of felt like when even though I love children and I always babysat growing up and was an infant caregiver when I was in my 20s and all those things, love babies, but it's like as soon as I had my own baby and it was my job to like be responsible for how this child was shaped and grew up, it was almost like a struggle to be interested in that or to like keep my focus on her development. So I think I was stretched in a lot of different ways, and sometimes I feel like I should have been more careful in some of those developmental stages to really give her the focus attention she needed. And when I look back at her early childhood, from the time she was born till maybe like the time she went to school, I was in like a very fight or flight state in my own life. And so some of the things that maybe kept me from attaching or bonding in the way that I should have were just like life circumstance and trauma that I had been through and then just being in survival mode. So I think like reflecting back on it, that would have been the hardest thing for me. And I would love to go back with my experience now and what I know about early childhood development and redo those things. But you can't. So at this point, you just have to
No.
keep trying to um, help them at the next stages. And now that I have more time, more economic stability, more stability in my relationship and in my house, I'm just a more stable parent and I can give her like that stable love and connectedness that she needs.
Yeah, and you wouldn't have gotten here if you didn't go through that then. And, like, you put all that time and effort towards building a business, and now you have, like, the breathing room to be able to provide that for her.
It's so funny how the combination of being um you know, a little bit of ADHD and some and a childhood trauma make the perfect combination for an entrepreneur, but not necessarily the perfect combination for a loving mother in the
Oh,
infant
no.
stage.
Oh, no, you are the perfect mother for her. I truly
Thank
believe
you.
with all of my being that everything happens for a reason, and that,
Oh,
I mean, I don't know what your beliefs are, but I believe that we choose our parents. So,
oh.
you're the perfect mother for her, and you're showing her, like, it's such a value that you're showing her how to, like, do it yourself and, like, what you're able to create on your own, and that she doesn't need to depend on anybody else.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that
that
was a
that's
big message that I really wanted to share in those early days because I remember feeling so discouraged that I just could not find like a stable partner and a good man to be in a relationship with and the way that I had been raised to really like who was your husband going to be and like praying for your husband and like
mm,
really longing to have like a good husband and my mom talking about oh I've always prayed for your husband and then just kind of getting to that age where I didn't have a husband and my life was I wasn't going to wait for my life to move on or go forward I wasn't gonna like just keep myself, I guess, stagnant and waiting for this
Yeah.
husband to appear. So just changing my thought process and being like, well, you know what? I'm gonna buy a house without a man. I'm gonna do these things without a man. And eventually, the ideal person, a great partner
Oh,
will come along, but they'll have to match my speed and the way that I'm
yeah.
going through life instead of me having to change myself in order to fit into this box of what a good wife and partner looks like. So, yeah, so very much part of my messaging as DIY mom was that, you don't have to wait for a man to do it. You can pick up a tool and do it yourself, and you can learn as you go, and don't be afraid to fail because all of our failures and all of the things that we make mistakes on are tomorrow's lessons and tomorrow's
Yes.
way that you do it better and you do it correct. And so all those little accidents that happened along the way, I just don't make those silly mistakes anymore. You have to do them once.
Yeah.
It's part of your education. It's part of your
Absolutely.
development. Hmm.
Absolutely. I love that. Beautiful message and so empowering.
Thank
Uh,
you.
yes. So building something from the ground up comes with its fair share of struggles and
Hmm.
self-doubt. So,
Hmm.
have you ever faced moments where you questioned whether you could keep going? And then how did you push past your doubts and keep building?
Yeah, I think that there were a lot of times early on where I was told that it was a bad idea, that I kind of thought, really, should I keep doing this or should I not do it? I had boyfriends that said, just like, you know, get a stable job. Like, why do you have to, pursue these dreams and all and, work for yourself? But I was just never a good fit to be somebody else's employee. I just always worked harder and better when I was my own boss.
Mm,
And then if had I listened to these naysayers or the folks that said that DIY wasn't going to amount to my DIY mom wasn't going to amount to anything, I wouldn't be sitting where I am now in this house in this beautiful neighborhood in the best school district in Halifax with my daughter going to the best public school that we could possibly get her into. So um, I think just like getting past the doubts in the early phases and then just pushing through it and doing it myself. Um, challenges of coming up against other men that maybe were either working for me on a job site that were quite maybe dismissive of me being their boss or being like the contractor, and then also the challenges of dealing with difficult neighbors over the years as I've done my renovations that maybe tried to put up roadblocks or stop me from succeeding. And so there's always been these little barriers that come up to reaching the next thing, and I somehow managed to push through it and just get it done. Um and I guess there's not without some consequences in terms of relationships that get damaged, but for the most part, I was able to push through those challenging times and get to where I am today.
and I'm so glad you didn't listen to them. Like, how did you, have you always just had like, you must have just had a really strong belief in yourself and in your mission.
Well, my dad said when I was a baby, he saw me crawl across all the other babies in the nursery room to get a Cheerio that was in the corner.
Oh my
And he said he
God. I
knew that
love
I
that
was
he
going to be all
remembers
right.
that.
He was
That
like,
is,
she
oh,
was just so determined. And I think like when you think about what you're driven by, everybody's driven by different things. The four typical ones are money, acceptance, power, and goals. And I've just always been goal driven. I didn't care about the money. I didn't care about the power. I just like would set a goal and I would need to get it done or want to do it. So that was truly my motivation. It through my whole childhood. And I guess it resonates with me still today as an adult.
oh my gosh, that's so funny. And I agree with you with the being goal focused because it keeps
Mm,
your focus on that one thing. And so that when distractions come in, when people want to doubt you or just negative things happen, it's just like it keeps your focus so that you're not distracted, even when you have
yeah.
ADHD. Right?
Yeah.
Um, okay, well, there's something about being able to create or fix things yourselves that gives someone confidence and independence. So how did you first learn how to like do everything yourself? And what advice
Mm.
would you give to moms who want to start but feel intimidated?
Okay, well, the way I started was just with parents that were kind of modeling that for me. My mom was always very creative. Like she would sew curtains and sew our dresses and toll paint all of the
Oh my
furniture and
gosh.
stencil the walls. Like she was always doing something very creative around the house. So, that's a little bit in my DNA. And then my dad
Yeah.
was more of like a problem solver and a like as needed, I will figure out how to do this, set up staging, paint the exterior of the house, fix the mortar in the chimney, things like that. My dad was sort of, even though I wouldn't consider my dad to be super handy, he certainly coordinated and just was driven to just figure it out. So I think a combination of being fairly creative, artistic, and good with my hands, and then starting at an early age, doing jobs for my dad, menial labor like painting and pressure
Yeah.
washing and cleaning up the exteriors of buildings and things like that. And then when I started to use power tools, I really didn't know what I was doing, but I guess I was delusional or confident enough to give it a try. And then when I would have different carpenters around working with me on the bigger renovations, they would show me little tricks and I would just be curious and interested and ask them what they were doing. And I learned the names of the tools and, the various cuts and the things that they were doing so that I could vocalize what I wanted, express what I needed them to do in a more
Yeah.
competent way. Because that's like one of the things about being a contractor is that you need to know how to communicate all the
In
terminology.
yeah.
Right. So it's just a matter of learning over the years and just putting it to use. But I just remember little things when people would show me how to use a screwdriver and they would say, if you put the screwdriver or the electric driver into reverse while you're pushing on the wood and then you turn it to forward, it's almost like does a little pre-drill for you. So you're less likely to split the wood. So little tricks like that they would show me and I would just remember that. So when I did it, I could do it. And then things like wallpapering and staircase runners, that was very much like I just learned as needed, kind of figured it out, maybe watched a couple tutorials or gave it a try and made some mistakes, pulled it up the rugs and did them again. And so now I can bang out a staircase runner pretty quickly.
Oh my gosh, good for you. I know we really are. We're so blessed nowadays to have YouTube and these tutorials like so readily and like yours on
Yeah.
your channel where things are just like so readily available. Like you really can teach yourself in Google, like teach yourself to do so much. It's just like not being like you're saying, not being afraid to fail and just know like if you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world and you're just going to learn from it and you'll do better next time.
Yeah, totally.
So, for moms who are busy but want to dip their toes into DIY, what are the
Hmm.
1 to 3 simple yet super useful projects you'd recommend they start with? Like, actually, real quick, for example. So, have you ever, I'm sure you have, like reupholstered chairs?
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a project that I want to do.
Oh, yeah.
Our dining room chairs, they're white. Now I bought them before we had kids. So you can
Yeah.
imagine
Now
like
they're all
ugh,
filthy.
they're gross. I'm like, Chris, I want to reupholster these, but I just like I don't even know where to start. I haven't like looked on YouTube or anything, but do you have any
Yeah. So I think
advice?
the best way to reupholster a chair is when you get a good staple remover and remove the
Okay.
fabric, but leave all the padding and all the things that are on the chair, like all the stuffing and stuff, so that you can reuse that. Just take off the top layer, which is your fabric or your upholstery material, and use that as a template to cut your new fabric. So don't throw that fabric out,
Oh,
save it, cut it
yes.
exactly the way that they cut it or with a little bit extra space. And then
Okay.
pay attention when you take it apart. Like if you have like a back piece that's on it, you might, if you have to pull off that back piece that's maybe a thinner material, you might have to replace that too. But then
Okay.
usually typically if it's like a full I don't know, is it just the seat that's upholstered or is it the whole back and everything?
It's just the seat part. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Then that's the easiest one to do. So you're just
Okay,
gonna
cool.
remove the staples, take off that piece of fabric, pick out your new fabric that you want to use, make sure it's like a good quality upholstery or like a high rub rate because you're going to be using them, scrubbing them, washing them, So when you go to the fabric store,
Mhm.
look for something that's specifically for that, and then use that
Okay.
as your fabric template and cut out the template, and then you're gonna wrap it around and staple it on the bottom. And yeah, it's really that simple. Just keep all the interiors of it there, and
Okay.
do one at a time, just so that you're not destroying all of your furniture
Okay.
and then like getting just disappointed. Like just do
Right.
one, take the
Okay.
first chair apart, put the fabric on, and then if it goes well and goes easily, then the next time, you know, it would go faster. And maybe you just do
Right.
one a day, like when the babies are sleeping or whatever. That's definitely a quick and easy one to do. And I think that most people can do it. You just need a good staple gun. And
Okay.
I have a battery operated one by Ryobi, which is great. I think they're only
Okay.
like just over $100. Or you can get the pneumatic staple guns that go into an air compressor. So if your husband or if you happen to have an air compressor
Mhm.
around the house,
I
then you
think
just
he
get the
does.
piece. Yeah. And the pneumatic one's pretty great because usually they're pretty small, so you can get into the difficult areas of the chair with that new pneumatic staple gun. And make sure you get the right length of staples and that they're for upholstery and that they're not too short or not too long. Like you really want to make sure that you're not going to shoot a staple through the wood of the chair. You want it to just grab the wood, um,
Okay.
and it's deep enough to get through the fabric and to connect with the wood.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe I should save the staples too that are
Well,
currently
you could
there just
definitely take one and then take it to the
just
store
to
and ask
see.
for a similar depth. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And do they sell those at the like
The
fabric
hard,
like
yeah. Or no, so
or
you're gonna get your
hardware?
fabric at the fabric store and then you're gonna get your staples and your tool at the hardware store.
Okay.
And
Okay.
like a little chisel will also help to get the material around but you could also use a butter knife. Like you could stick a butter knife in the fabric and just get it around the wood of the chair. I don't know exactly what the chair looks like, but there's every once in a while there's a place where you kind of need to fold the fabric and tuck it around and then before you can get it around the other side. But as you take it apart, just pay attention to how
Okay.
it goes, and maybe if you need to film it as you take it apart so you can kind of remember how it goes back together.
Good. That's a
If your
really
brain is like, yeah,
good.
yeah.
Okay. I'm like making notes here.
Any
I
other questions?
I
Any
don't think
other home
this is
projects that you're looking to do?
oh my gosh. Probably so many, but that was like the main one that I was gonna do because my husband's actually very handy, but I'm like, I want to learn.
You can
It's
do
so
it, yeah.
empowering and it feels so good when you can do things yourself.
Hmm.
So these are really great tips. I love that idea to film it as I'm taking it apart so I remember.
Yeah.
That could be
Make
a
put the
struggle is
video in reverse.
remembering. Um,
Yeah.
awesome. That's so good. And I'm gonna try this and I'm gonna send
Report
you the
back.
video. Yes, I will
Yes.
report back. Awesome.
You can tag me if you
Um,
post it on Instagram. You can be like, my first
yes,
chair.
I will. You'll be so proud. Hopefully, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Okay, awesome. So many moms want to create a beautiful home, but feel limited by
Hmm.
finances. So,
Hmm.
what are your top tips for designing and renovating on a budget?
Well, there are things that you can do that are going to cost you no money, which is declutter and get rid of half the things in your house.
Yeah,
I
feels
that's
so
like
good.
another thing that I'm trying to do right now is just to get rid of a lot of things. And then when you are getting rid of things, if there's certain things that are sentimental or part of your heritage or antiques or things that are meaningful to you, then you pull those things out of the boxes and you put them on display. For me, I just feel like there's no point in holding on to a lot of extra things if they're not going to be out in the open or if you can't enjoy them. So that's a good time to also decide like what should I get rid of and what should I keep. Um, and then use those. So now if you've decluttered your house and you've got some shelf space now you have some space to actually display those heirlooms and those pieces that mean something to you. And even things like your kids' artwork and your things that you've collected and saved over the years. If you're gonna keep them, then frame them and put them on a wall. Like one of
Yes.
my very first DIY projects I did was a gallery wall because I had moved so many times over the years and I had show posters and newspaper clippings and art that friends had made me. And And I had all these things that I was saving, and I was thinking, well, if I'm not, if they're not in the out in the open, should I be keeping these things? And so that's why I made my gallery wall, and I put everything in frames and put it up the wall. So, yeah, so I just think that's a great, easy way to start. And then other ways to freshen up your home that don't cost a lot of money are painting and maybe refreshing your spaces. So like if the colors feel dated, you can simplify things by painting the walls white and then adding your color in your furniture or in your decor. Or if you know, really want to add some color to a room, picking a nice color paint. And you know, a way to elevate it is also to do the trim and the doors all in the same color. It makes it feel like very designery.
Yeah.
And then like I've had a lot of fun with wallpaper over the years, adding wallpaper. You can find inexpensive wallpapers and you can easily learn how to hang your own wallpaper as well. It's time consuming and it can be frustrating, but I find that the paste the wall type and then you cut the paper and you put it on the wall. I found that the most uh consistent and easy to maneuver and the least messy almost as well. Hmm.
Okay, awesome. And real quick, so that gallery wall, I want to
Yeah.
say it's on season one, episode one that you,
Yeah, it's the very
so if,
first episode.
yeah, so if you guys want to see her tips and tricks on how to do a gallery wall, just go to YouTube, DIY Mom, season one, episode one.
Yeah. I think that first episode, I do a gallery wall and a staircase runners.
Yes, yeah, I think,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
I
you get to
remember
see
the,
those two tutorials.
yes, so
Yeah.
check that out. Um, All right. And then think you kind of already went over design tips that you have for people. We just discussed that. But how does someone figure out like what their style is?
Yeah, I think that you can figure out your style based on what you're typically drawn to, you know, the things that kind of show up in your feed when it comes to design and decor. Usually you're shown the stuff that you tend to heart or like. I also think a great way to know about colors or what kind of colors you want in your home is like, what kind of colors do I wear? What colors look good on me? Because typically the colors that you wear are also the colors that you want to put in your home. Um, and then I think just editing, like and hone in on your style. So for instance, I had a client last summer who loved really bold colors and bright things and very unique and antique and just vintage and a mixture of everything. And she wanted things to be just loud, loud, loud. And I kind of was able to figure out exactly what she wanted was more of this granny chic style. Like she was like, I
Granny
want
chic.
granny chic. And then tapering that and editing it. And she would send me things that, you know, she was drawn to and she kind of liked that I felt maybe were a little bit over the top or tacky or would date themselves. And then I would try to find a more classic version of that or a way to do it in a way that felt like it was an amalgamation of my taste and my expertise and my style really meeting what she wanted in her own personal home.
Okay. Yes. I love that. So paying attention to the colors that you're drawn to, what you wear. And I
Mhm.
love the tip too to like look at your feed and see how everything that you're liking.
Yeah, because maybe you like traditional style cabinets and you tend to be drawn to a traditional kitchen. Or maybe you like really minimalist Scandinavian style stuff and that tends to be what you like. So I think if you're drawn to that sort of straight lines, minimalist thing, then you know it versus
Okay.
people that are very attracted to traditional or folksy or you know, maximalized style instead of minimalist. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And beyond flipping houses, you're also deeply involved in your community. You
Hmm.
advocate for women fleeing abuse and
Yes.
empower single moms. So, can you share more about why this work is so important to you and how women listening can support these causes?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I think if I had not experienced intimate partner violence and in my own life, then I probably would have a very dismissive attitude about a lot of women that are maybe find themselves in the situations that they are today. But I'm grateful that in a way, I did experience that kind of trauma in my life because it has made me so much more empathetic to those women who need to find shelters and that don't have family support. In my situation, I ended up having a family that I could go to and turn to. And I remember when I was fleeing the situation, driving to the top of the road, not knowing where I was going. If I was turning right, I was going to a shelter. If I was turning left, I was going to my family, and having to make that split decision about, am I, going to keep this private and personal and go to a shelter, or am I going to bring my family into it, and having to make that decision. In the end, I ended up going to my family, and I think it was the right decision for me because but then as I understood intimate partner violence more and coercive control more and narcissistic abuse techniques further, I realized like this is why it's so hard for women to get out of these situations. Many of them are also trapped because of financial
Yeah.
um, coercion and ways that they are money is withheld from them to make them feel trapped in those situations. And then also as I studied and learned more about the shelters available to us in Nova Scotia, that how full they are and how there's just no
Oh,
space for people. And this really became a huge a problem that was escalated and brought more awareness to during COVID because we saw the rise of intimate partner violence just with the mandates to stay home.
yeah.
It was just like an abuser's dream come true. And so through all of that, that just sort of pushed me further towards helping women in these situations and doing whatever I could to help. So I've done fundraisers over the years, from yard sales that would go to Ads and for Women and Children to my DIY You Grow Girl boxes, which were gardening kits that I sold, where you build your own greenhouse and then it comes with all the seeds and the tools that you need to start your garden. Um, and so that is a project that I did a couple years ago, and I'm bringing those boxes back again this spring so that we can raise
Awesome.
hopefully $5,000 again to give to Ads for Women and Children.
Oh, awesome. And then where do they go to get those boxes? Your website?
Yeah, so I am working on the method of to which I am going to get those boxes to people because I want to do it as a donation.
Okay.
So they don't I don't have a set price for the boxes. You decide how much you want to pay for them.
Okay.
And so I'm working out the details right now as to how that will work and then how we will ship them to people. But
Okay.
stay tuned. I will make an announcement on my social media when those are ready to go, and hopefully before the end of April, we will see those up and ready to ship.
Awesome. And I can include the like when everything is ready, I'll be on the lookout, and if you can remember to let me know too, I can include that link, like the ordering link on
Hmm.
the show notes for this episode.
Perfect.
If
Thank
that would
you.
help. Yeah, of course. So you've accomplished so much already, and I'd just like to know what's next for you. Do you have any big projects or dreams that you're working on and can share with us?
Well, right now I am working on a new home build. So this is the first time I've actually built a house from scratch. So I
No
found a house in
way.
my neighborhood that was on a great street on the sunny side of the road. And I thought, oh, this is a really great block and a great street. But the house needed so much work and it was in an awkward position on the lot. So I decided to tear the house completely down and start new. So I've never
Oh
done
my
anything
gosh.
anything like that. I've been sharing it on my social media as I go. We started the excavation for the foundations and the footings yesterday. So I shared that on my social media last night. And as we start to build and as it comes together, I'll be sharing lots of that over the next year. And this house is another big stepping stone towards me being completely free and mortgage free and debt free. So I'm very excited about that too.
Good for you. Oh my gosh, amazing. I can't wait to watch that and see the beginning to end. I love the transformations. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca, again for coming on, sharing your story and your wisdom, and your design tips. Can you, before you sign off, just share how people can find you?
Yes, they can find me at diymom.ca. That's also my website, diymom.ca. On Instagram, I'm diymom.ca. On Facebook, I'm diymom.ca. And then if
Perfect.
you want to
Easy.
watch the whole season, just go to my website and you can go find my YouTube from there. Um, and if you want to see the show on Binge TV, they have all 5 seasons now, and that's trybinge.tv. And I think you get a 7-day free trial there, so you can watch all 5 seasons of my show on Binge.
Okay, awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much. And I can't
Thanks.
wait for people to learn more about you and hear this episode. I can't wait to hear what everybody thinks.
Yeah, and if you are finding me for the first time because of this podcast, please reach out and say hi to me on social media. I'd love
Yes.
to connect with you.
All right. Thank you, Rebecca. Bye.
Thanks so much, Tanya. Bye.